Hi, I'm Ali, and this is A Life in Chapters, a quiet space for readers, journal keepers, and creative souls. So this is episode 5, Walking in Agatha Christie's Footsteps, visiting Greenway in Devon. So wherever you are listening today, maybe you're on a walk, journaling with your morning coffee, or just taking a moment of stillness, I hope this episode meets you with a sense of calm and connection. So in the last episode, I shared how my mum's love of detective fiction became something we shared deeply, from the books she passed to me to the TV mysteries we watched together. Now, it was never really about the murders, it was about the structure, the safety, the calm that came when a puzzle was solved and order was restored. That shared love gave me a lifelong appreciation for Golden Age detective fiction, and most of all for the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. And for years there was one place that sat quietly in the back of my mind, a place I always wanted to visit, Greenway, Agatha Christie's summer home in Devon. It wasn't just a house I wanted to see, it was a symbol of something else, a bridge perhaps between my love of books and the memories of my mum. And in this episode, I want to share what it was like to finally visit Greenway and how it felt like walking through both history and memory. So, I first glimpsed Greenway when I was a teenager. I was probably around 17, and I was living in Devon by then. We'd moved there when I was 11, and one day we took a boat trip down the River Dart. It was one of those classic Devon days. On that day, it was grey skies but beautiful, everything still and green and slightly damp in the way that the countryside, particularly Devon, does so well. The tour guide pointed to a house high on the bank, really high up it was, cream-coloured, partially hidden by trees. That, he said, was Agatha Christie's holiday home. I remember my heart skipping a little. Agatha Christie had a house here. I didn't even know that at the time. But somehow it felt magical. She always seemed a little untouchable, this grand literary figure with all her bestsellers and plot secrets. And yet here she had lived, holidayed, written, wandered through her gardens. I thought about how lovely it would be to go there with my mum, to explore the house and gardens together, and maybe catch a glimpse of the woman behind the mysteries. But at that time, the house was still privately owned by Agatha's only daughter, Rosalind. It wasn't open to the public, and so it stayed a dream. Then, in 2000, something shifted. Rosalind gifted Greenway to the National Trust, and after an enormous restoration project, it finally opened to visitors in 2009. Now, by that point, my parents had both passed away. It was, in fact, just the year before, in 2008, and so the dream of going to Greenway with my mum was no longer possible. But still, the house called to me. There was something about it. Now that it was open, it only made me want to see it more. And in late summer of 2010, we'd gone down to Devon on holiday, I finally visited the house. Now again, it was one of those really heavy rain-soaked days. It was absolutely pouring down on the day I went. It meant I didn't really get any photos apart from one of the house. There were thick clouds overhead, damp grass underfoot, and everything a little quieter than usual because of the weather. But I was undeterred. It somehow felt fitting, even atmospheric, like something out of an Agatha Christie novel. Walking through the gates of Greenway felt surreal. The house is nestled into the hillside, looking out over the River Dart. Surrounded by trees, it feels tucked away, peaceful, unassuming, yet full of stories. The first thing that struck me was how lived in it felt. Many sort of stately homes are curated within an inch of their lives, roped-off rooms, perfect arrangements, museum energy. But Greenway isn't like that. Rosalind didn't want it turned into a gimmick. She didn't want Poirot-themed rooms or Marple memorabilia. She wanted the house to reflect her mother as she truly lived. And that's what you find. Agatha Christie's furniture collected from her travels, photographs of her family, books lining the shelves, silverware on the tables, even a piano she loved. There's a warmth to the space, like someone's just stepped out of the room and might be back any moment. In one room, or at least you were allowed to do this when I visited, you were able to sit in the armchairs, and that is really rare for a historic home. And that one small gesture changes the feel entirely. It stops being a museum. It becomes real. There was something quietly powerful about being in that space, knowing that Agatha Christie walked those halls, sat at that desk, wandered through the gardens, hosted friends and family, rested, wrote. She wasn't just a famous name on a book cover. She was a woman who loved beauty, detail, history and home. Her second husband, Max Mallowan, was an archaeologist, and together they had a deep fascination with the past. That interest runs through her novels, but it also lives on in Greenway, in the collections they kept, the artefacts displayed, and the way the house tells a story, not just of mystery, but of love and curiosity. Locally, she was known as Mrs. Mallowan, not Christie, and that feels right too. In Greenway, she wasn't a celebrity. She was just a woman living her life. As I walked through the rooms, I found myself thinking of my mum. She would have adored it. The delicate china, the glimpses into daily life, the lack of fuss or theme park energy. She would have taken it all in slowly, noticing the fabrics and the paintings and asking brilliant questions of the staff. And sitting there in that armchair, surrounded by the hum of quiet voices and the sound of rain on the windows, I felt closer to her again. And that's the strange thing about place, isn't it? Sometimes a building is just a building, but sometimes with the right combination of memory and meaning, it becomes something else entirely. After we'd explored the house, we had lunch in the kitchen, a traditional menu inspired by meals that might have been served when Agatha and her family were there. It added another layer of connection, not just looking, but experiencing, sharing the same view, the same space, the same meal. Now, before we left, I bought a copy of Dead Man's Folly in the gift shop. It's a Poirot novel set in a house based on Greenway, right down to the little boat deck. The TV adaptation, starring David Suchet, was even filmed on location. So when I read it now, it's like revisiting the rooms, the shadows, the river. And when I do, I feel not just the joy of the story, but the weight of something deeper. Memory, connection, a kind of circle closing. Devon itself plays a part in all this too. As I said, I moved to Devon when I was 11 and I went to secondary school there. It was home through so many formative years, a place of cliffs and coastlines, winding lanes, old villages, sea air and soft green hills. There's a quiet magic to it that I still feel every time I return. And even now I dream of living there again. I don't have family there now, but I still want to go back. I would just love to find a little cottage near the coast, somewhere to walk and write and breathe. Somewhere that brings together the landscape of my childhood and the life I'm building now. And that might sound quite romantic, and people living in Devon might be thinking, that's not a reflection of what I know, but it still captures that within me. It still makes me want to go back. Because I still feel that compared to where I live, much closer to London, in Devon things feel slower, softer, rich with stories, and Greenway is a part of that. If you ever find yourself in the area or you're simply an Agatha Christie fan, I can't recommend Greenway enough. And you can find all the visiting information on the National Trust website, including opening hours, travel advice, and details on the house and gardens. It's well worth making a day of it. The gardens are stunning, the house is filled with atmosphere, and the whole experience creates memories that linger long after you leave. Not all places live up to our expectations, but this one did. And if, like me, you ever feel that urge to visit somewhere meaningful, even if it takes years, I hope you do it. Because some places don't just give us new memories, they return old ones too. And sometimes they bring us a little closer to the people we've loved. Thanks so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, you can read the full blog post and see the one photo of Greenway I took over at alifeinchapters.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast and help me to keep sharing these stories, you can do that through Patreon. Just head to patreon.com/alifeinchapters to learn more. I'll see you in the next chapter.